Hello, this is Lawrence Romanosky from Calgary, Canada, and here's a continuation of some of the other videos that I've done of my own cars. So I kind of have fun where I can. I'm in the car business and I do videos for the Distinctive Collection, which is the Aston, Bentley and Spyker dealer in Calgary. But then I also fool around with my own stuff. So I had the roof Porsche and the BMW Alpina B7S. And then this came along, so I have a thing for 80s Mercedes, and over the last 10 years I think I've just about always had one or two as a driver. So right now I've got a 300 Coupe and a wagon, a TE 4MATIC wagon, both of which I adore. And then this is the big one. This is the 560 SEC. I've had the sedan version of this before, and it's a lovely car. Okay, so these SECs, or the 560, they're the big family of Benzes, and they're called the W126, and they would have come into production in the late 70s. I'm going to say 79, but I could be somebody could correct me on that. And they would have gone through until 1991. So this car was of course sold worldwide. It had numerous engines in it. For North America, because there was a gas crunch going on in the late 70s, they debuted this car as a 380 SEC, and that had a 3.8 liter version of the V8 engine, which I guess they were happy with at the time, but now I think it only had about 180 horsepower, 190 horsepower. And this is a 4,000 pound car, so the enthusiasts would have applauded the addition of the larger displacement engines later on. So I think in 1980, I'm going to say 1984, there was a 500 SEC with a 5-liter engine, and then for 1986 there was the 5.6 liter. So this is an 87. It's got the 5.6 liter. Obviously, that's where the 560 comes from, and it would have 238 horsepower and close to 300 pound-feet of torque, if not more. I have to look that up. Anyway, it was down a little bit on the European version. The European version had hotter camshafts and different exhaust and no cats. I think they were optional, but most of them didn't have cats. And it would have been 300 horsepower. And then they would have made this in the giant 4-door sedan, which could have been an SE for the short wheelbase or an SEL for the long wheelbase. They're all rear-wheel drive, a 4-speed automatic transmission. The 560s had self-leveling rear suspension, whereas the lesser models didn't. In North America, we only, for the Coupe anyway, we only got the 380 and the 500 and the 560. This car was the flagship of the range. In Canada, it was $115,000. $115,000 in the 80s bought you an awfully nice house in a good neighborhood. These cars were almost twice what a Jag would have been. And a good 50–60% more than a BMW. This is a very, very expensive motor car. And back in the 80s, Mercedes only made 4 product lines. They had their 107 bodies, which were the 2-seat sports cars, or 2-seat Grand Touring sports cars with a removable hardtop. They had their W124 bodies, which were the mid-size cars, the E-Class in coupe, sedan, convertible, and wagon variant. And then they had the 560, the W126s, which were the big cars. And then they had the smaller one, the 190. So and then all of these cars would have been in production for a huge run. So this is 1979. All the way up to 1991. The SL 107 body was like 1971 to 1989. The E-Class was 1984 to 1995. The 190 was, I don't remember, 84 to into the 90s anyway. So they only had 4 cars. They were all in production for like 10 or 20 years. The engineers built this car. They built the best car that they could build. And then the accountants priced it, and the car was, 50 or 60 or 70% more than anything else. And only rich people could buy it. And they didn't sell very many. And if you wanted the best car in the world, you bought a Mercedes, paid the money, and you got what you paid for. Unquestionably, you got the safest car with the greatest survival rates from accidents. You got the most durable car, in the Guinness Book of World Records, etc., etc. You got the car with the highest residual values of any car, and you got the car with the highest owner retention of any car, and you got the #1 spot in the J.D. Power Customer Satisfaction Index when it came out, and nothing was even close. So I got a thing for 80s Mercedes. I prefer them to the new cars. I've had lots of the new cars as well, and particularly I like these 560s. There's effortless torque from the 5.6 liter engine. It's beautifully smooth. They're not so big as the new cars. They're inside. They're just a little bit cozier, and they are among, well, no, I think I can say, possibly the most durable car ever made. I know of several examples that have gone like 700,000–800,000 kilometers. I mean, these cars, if properly maintained, will go absolutely forever. And if a piece breaks in it, or one of the electrical functions stops working, really all you usually have to do is just take it apart and clean the hardened grease out of it, and then it works again. So it's a fantastically durable car, fantastically well made. With my SEL, I had a couple of incidences. One was with this Toyota that lost control on the ice and slid into me. And then the other one was when, if you leave these cars in neutral, they will roll. And so I left it in neutral, and it rolled into a garage, and it hit the garage. Both of those incidences, I got a scratch on the bumper. I mean, the garage corner was buckled in. It was a solid, like 4x4 piece of wood, and I heard this tremendous crack, and there was like sawdust everywhere, all over the car. But when I went to go dust it off, it's just a scratch on the bumper. And then when this guy in the Toyota hit me, I demolished the front end of his car. There was another little scratch in the bumper. I mean, it's humorous almost. You feel absolutely invincible in this car. And I just have a real thing. I mostly drive my E-Class because this isn't great on gas. And this one's, I think, too nice just to subject it to the rigors of daily driving. This particular car was sold new in Edmonton. David Morris, Fine Cars. It was sold to a Hughes Oil executive. It's never seen the salt. All the records I have for it. Just undo the hood on this. All the records I have for it are from Vancouver and Kelowna, which is really dry. It's got 170,000 kilometers on it, and if you look at the engine, it's a little bit dirty. I mean, you can tell. I haven't tried to go shine it up or anything like that. You can tell it's a used car, but it's dry. It's powerful. It has the same compression as the day it was born. There's no rust on the vehicle at all, and it drives magnificently. I'm not sure what I'm doing with the vehicle. I guess most of my stuff I do sell. To improve it, the standard alloy wheels, these are 15 inches. They're starting to paint's starting to peel on that. Those could be refinished. These tires are the wrong size. They're 225s, and they should be 205s. They look kind of silly, kind of this goofy Yokohama AVS tread compound. At least the guy did spring for V-rated tires, but I think he got the bad advice from this tire guy. The paint is all original. Every panel has slight marks where you can see it was touched up in places or so on. No repaints, no accidents. The leather hasn't been painted, which I hate because it just destroys it. There is, if you go to the other side, there's a little bit of wear on the driver's bolster. The wood's in excellent shape. The wood cracks in these pretty easily. This center console piece was replaced, so that's a brand new piece of wood. It was $600. I'll show you the driver's seat bolster, and yeah, there's a little bit of wear there, but nothing. There's no. It's just discolored. There's no tear or anything like that. Anyway, I have you can probably tell I have a huge enthusiasm for these cars. The coupes were, well, actually all the cars were Bruno Sacco designed, and they're really, I believe, just perfectly proportioned and great, elegant cruisers. Nobody cares about 80s Benzes anymore, so it's a very affordable way to have a wonderful classic car, I think, because you can get parts for it anywhere. The parts aren't really that expensive. You need to find a good car. If you buy a crappy one, even if somebody gives it to you for free, you're going to regret it, because if you're going to correct years of deferred maintenance, you'll find that there is no deal in getting a poor car. With just about all cars, this is true. Buy the best that you can afford. It's especially true with some of these complicated, heavy, coupes and sedans. Get a great one. Get one that's looked after. Get one that hasn't been hit. Get one where the owner's some rich guy who just brought it to the dealer, and the dealer, when it said 144,000 kilometer service, it came in and it got the 144,000 kilometer service. Sometimes these are cheap to buy and they fall into the wrong hands, and they just stop following the maintenance, and the car sort of enters a slow but sure decline. And then what happens is they find a couple of really big bills, and then it's the time to sell the car, and then of course that's when you get it, and then you're faced with you can spend $10,000 or $20,000 on these things just refurbishing them easily. So you want service records. You want to know where the car is from. You want to know that the owner took pride in the car and just took it to either a qualified specialist or the dealer. And you want to see a train of maintenance records from new on the car, with all the servicing and the oil changes and the coolant changes, etc., etc. So anyway, very happy to have this. It came through a friend who's in Banff, an old Mercedes guy, and the car's been thoroughly checked and looked over and inspected. And just going through now, I think got a few. I'm going to change the diff oil just because nobody ever does that, because everybody forgets about it. So I'll do that, and a few other things to the car, and then I'll have a nice classic, unless somebody wants to buy it, in which case I'll sell it to them. It's Lawrence Romanosky, Calgary, Canada, and thanks again for looking at my videos. Bye-bye.